There's not long left of this transfer window, and I have to say it would not surprise me at all if Danny Ings left in this window. And he's not the only one, by the way, and I'm not talking about Pablo Fornals here, I've already spoken about in separate videos. I was somewhat dubious when West Ham signed him, it has to be said, and I just want to make the point that this is nothing against Danny Ings' ability. I think he's got a fantastic ability to sniff out an opportunity in the box. They're a rare breed, those players, actually. They used to be 10 a penny, and if you look back not that long ago, but, the sort of the fox in the box, 6-yard box sniffer, for want of a better phrase, it's not something that's used or utilised that often. I think it didn't take Unai Emery very long to work out that wasn't going to suit his strategy and his tactics at Aston Villa, so he got rid of him. I think the only surprise for me was that it was West Ham that signed him. You have to suggest it was a bit of a panic signing because he doesn't suit our style of play any more than he suits Unai Emery's style of play. In fact, I'd suggest he suits Emery more than he suits David Moyes. Some would suggest that it paid off. He scored the double, scored the brace against Nottingham Forest. Let's be fair, they were awful that day, and I think we would have beaten Nottingham Forest, whoever was playing up front, it has to be said. Not to diminish him scoring the goals, but I think a lot of it is put on that. I've heard it said a few times, Danny Ings helped keep us up. And you know what? Maybe he did, but I also thought there were a load of performances where I thought he was very, very poor. Again, not his fault. He just had precious little service. And I think actually there probably would have been better people who we could have brought in that probably would have seen us over the safety line in the Premier League earlier than had we just have signed Danny Ings. But I look at the team now and I don't really see any way that he can play too much at West Ham now. As I understand it, we're after a forward. As I understand it, it's well out there. It's common knowledge. We are looking at a striker. If West Ham get a striker, where does Danny Ings play and when does Danny Ings play? I would suggest almost not at all. In the Chelsea game, if you remember, Michail Antonio had run himself ragged. Great performance. What was David Moyes' decision then? Well, he needed somebody with some athleticism, a bit of pace, somebody who was going to be able to turn quickly. He moved Jarrod Bowen up front. That's exactly what he did. I think we'll see that an awful lot this season, particularly if we don't buy a striker. West Ham are looking at a number of players who can play wide. That is only going to facilitate that move of Bowen as centre forward even more so. So I think you've got a couple of options there. If we buy a winger or a versatile player that can play up front or play wide, I think when Antonio, who it does look like he's staying now, and so he should, the club are well within their rights to keep him, absolutely. I mean, it was Antonio who really banged the drum for his new contract and to have parity with the top earners. Well, you know what? He got it. And at the time, I thought, well, that's a very, very long contract. But you know what? He wanted it. We're paying it. He's on good wages. So he should stay another season if the club wants him to. We gave him what he wanted. If you're going to play like he played against Chelsea as well, then, certainly starts against Brighton, right? But when he does deserve a rest or when he needs a rest or when he's injured, what's going to happen? Well, at the moment it's going to be Bowen. To sign another player, then it's going to be them. At what point do we actually utilise Danny Ings? Possibly, I can't think very much at all, apart from in games where we're comfortable to see them out. West Ham, in particular, David Moyes, I think has managed the Europa League and the Conference League really well over the past couple of seasons. Gets out the group very, very well. That's based on us winning well at home and being really tight at the back. Away from home, sort of perfect European tactics in many respects. Even if we really toil, I mean, we can go away to somebody like Larnaca, who we should really be thrashing. There's no need to sit back, yet we do it. And he asks his centre forward to work and work and work and work and work. And the level of opposition is going to be obviously better in the Europa League than the Conference League. We've had the luxury of seeing both in the past couple of seasons. But I think in a game where we're definitely going to need points, I can't see Danny Ings starting too often. I very much see him being a bit part player. If you're going to go away from home in Europe, and what you're going to do is you're going to set up and put 9 men behind the ball and have that one striker just running and trying to tire centre halves, I would put Mohammed there. I think he would knacker them out more readily, more easily. That's just what I would do. I think if you've got no support in the box, and Danny Ings would have no support in the box, it's actually an easy day at the office, I believe, for any of the centre-backs. In many respects, I would put Maxwell Cornet up front for those games before I'd put Danny Ings up there, just because he's quicker and he's more athletic. I just look at Danny Ings and think quite easily I can see him being... I think he already is third choice striker behind Jared Bowen and behind Michail Antonio. If we sign another forward, doesn't even have to be a forward, it could be Kudus, it could be anyone, then he becomes fourth choice. I really do think that. And that's without Mubama improving, which of course you're going to have to assume that Mubama is going to improve because of his age. I think there's a level of David Moyes still being a little bit cross with Maxwell Cornet as well. So I think there's going to be a point where maybe he works his way back into his favour. And then Danny Ings got even more of a problem. So for that reason, I would not be surprised at all if Danny Ings is looking for a club right now. And so he should. If he doesn't, then he gets to January and he goes then. And it's hard. It's difficult to say it's not worked out for Danny Ings. I think, he's earned good money at West Ham and he's got winner's medal, right? So he's probably really pleased with what he did. But he's going to want to play games. He's a goal scorer. Goal scorers want to score goals. Which sort of does lead me on to Maxwell Cornet, which is the other guy that I'm sort of wondering whether West Ham are going to be able to hang on to that guy. Not that there's a queue of people waiting to take him, but he is somebody that I have looked at, and you look at the disparity in the money. You could use any player you want, but let's take the Mohammed Kudus transfer saga, and there was very much a case of, on that second bid, West Ham were £10 million down or something on where Ajax wanted us to be. If David Moyes is not going to use him, then he might as well sell Cornet, and he might as well use that money and bulk that up. Kadua scored, of course, once again for the under-21s. So I think he is a real viable option on the wing if you want someone to come in an emergency. So I do think that we've already seen a few players leave, haven't we? And I think some of us thought it would be Cresswell, it'd be Antonio, would be the next ones out the door. But it may well be that it's actually Fornals, it's maybe Danny Ings and possibly Maxwell Cornet. Now, I've already spoken about Fornals. I think it's a shame that if he goes, I really do. But also, you've got to factor in that we are bringing in Jesse Lingard as well. I think in terms of Maxwell Cornet, it's just really the fact that David Moyes won't use him. I do actually think he's suited to David Moyes' tactics and he's versatile. Unfortunately for Danny Ings, I think in his case, I just really can't see any way at all where Danny Ings thrives at West Ham United. There's been suggestions that we might play with 3 centre-backs. The way he's buying centre-backs, I wouldn't put it past him, but I think if we do, it'll be sporadic. I think it'll be the odd game here or there. I certainly don't think we'll be playing with 3 centre-backs, allowing us to play a 3-5-2, which means Danny Ings starts lots of games. I think we'll switch to 3 at the back sometimes, but in the main, I think we'll play whatever you want to call it, the 4-2-3-1 or whatever it might be. For that reason, I do think that Danny Ings is going to find himself surplus to requirements at West Ham.